The Spin-off Podcast Network.
Are you making the most of your KiwiSaver investment? Generate is an award-winning KiwiSaver provider with a track record of strong long-term performance. Making a smart decision now could add tens of thousands of dollars by the time you reach retirement. Book a no-obligation chat with a Generate KiwiSaver advisor today at generatekiwisaver.co.nz/get-advice. A copy of the product disclosure statement is available at generatekiwisaver.co.nz. The issuer of the scheme is Generate Investment Management Limited, and of course, past performance does not guarantee future returns.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. With the price of just about everything going up during inflation, we thought we'd bring our prices down. So to help us, we brought in a reverse auctioneer, which is apparently a thing.
Mint Mobile Unlimited Premium Wireless. How to get 30, 30, bit to get 30, bit to get 20, 20, 20, bit to get 20, 20, bit to get 15, 15, 15, 15, just $15 a month? Sold!
Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
$45 up front for 3 months plus taxes and fees. Promo rate for new customers for limited time. Unlimited more than 40 gigabytes per month. Slows full terms at mintmobile.com.
Kia ora tātou, this is Toby Manhai with another episode of your friendly local politics podcast, Gone by Lunchtime. What you're about to hear is part of the Gone by Lunchtime Megapod, a 12-hour epic event recorded on September 20 at Spin-off HQ. Enjoy. On the line, from Wellington, the one, the only Ben McKay. Hey, Ben.
Hello, how you going?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm really well. I've been dipping in and out of the Megapod.
Yeah, good.
Sadly, have a job, so can't listen to it all.
And your job, we should tell people, is you are New Zealand correspondent for the Australian Associated Press, and just generally a kind of force of nature around the press gallery.
Well, I notice in your hype content, you've described me as both dashing and swashbuckling.
Yeah, that's good.
So I think you're doing this to hype listeners, given no one knows who I actually am.
I think that's
but I'm happy to
speaking the truth.
I'm happy to embrace, the high expectations, unlike the low expectations of last night's leaders' debate.
Oh man, wow, yeah. What was your takeaway on that?
I mean, where do you start? I think in my piece today, I should add as well, by the way, I'm here as Ben McKay. I'm not doing this as the AOP Coro.
Yep.
But I think around my piece, like the book question, I just can't get over it. The fact that one of them answered with the book they were currently reading, misunderstanding the question, and one didn't have a book. I know we've built on this, but it really is a microcosm of this fairly uninspiring election, which is not to say that the election is not important, right? It's like hugely consequential. We're going to go in either a big left-wing or a big right-wing direction, you would have thought, and yet we've got this fairly insipid, uninspiring debate and campaign. It's
You might have missed it, Ben, but we did have Chris Hipkins on last hour, and I was able to establish in a world exclusive for the spin-off Megapod that Chris Hipkins has read a book. And he chose, first of all, the fantastic Mr. Fox, and then when pushed to go for a book for grown-ups, he went for Dan Brown, the Dan Brown Da Vinci Code. So there you go. That's a good one for that's straight off the kind of Batch and the Batch at Raumati type feel. Anyway, it's good to know that the Prime Minister's read a book. I think you'll agree.
I listened. I missed him on. That's a good get by you guys. I'm glad he's called in to support the Megapod.
Oh, it's good to have.
I did catch him at the Gisborne stand-up. I've been watching the stand-ups from afar today because can't get to the mighty East Coast.
Yeah.
And he was asked by Katie Scotcher, who's a RNZ reporter, good young reporter. Shout out Katie. He was asked by Katie whether he missed a trick in the debate, and his response was, and this is a quote,
"Yes,
that wasn't my intention. My intention was to participate in the debate." It's pretty low.
It's a hard job. It's a thankless task, and we're all too cruel. But listen, I need to ask you these three critical questions. We'll rattle through them before we get to matters of more consequence. First, your guess on the turnout. Somewhere between, it was 82 at the last election, it was 75 in 2011, somewhere in between, to one decimal point to go and to win a box of chocolate fish.
Well, I don't really understand this question as an Australian with compulsory voting.
Yeah.
We throw a lot in with, North Korea and a lot of South America. So can I just guess 100? I just assume it'll be 100.
It's got to be.
Yeah. Why would you want to miss out?
Second question, what's your political TV show of choice?
So can I choose a documentary?
Yeah.
Or does it have to be
It's a bit nerdy, but sure.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I grew up on the ABC documentaries of, that catalogued like previous prime ministers. And there's a couple of excellent ones. The Killing Season about Rudd and Gillard, and it's great because they get them both in interviews and they go through, the various times they backstabbed each other. And Labour in Power with Hawke and Keating. That the Howard Years ones wasn't as exciting, so there's less backstabbing. And I understand there's a new one on the recent Liberal years coming out, so I'll be keeping my eye out for that.
And finally, Mojo. Where do we put you on our still evolving Mojo meter? Between 0, you got no mojo, and 10, you're oozing mojo.
Well, I mean, I am coming from Wellington, but there isn't actually a mojo in Island Bay where I'm dialing in from. So on that basis, I'm going to give you a flat 0.
Oh, wow.
I am pretty flat about this campaign.
Yeah, right.
You can probably tell.
Oh, no, you sound quite jolly. But it would be a danger to all of our health if you were otherwise, I suppose, given your exuberance normally. Let's talk about Australia on October 14. We're not the only people voting by chance, or because they didn't really notice that we were having an election. There is a vote scheduled on October 14 in Australia, which is...
The voice referendum.
Tell us about it.
Well, first of all, it's the height of rudeness, I think, to put the election, to put the referendum on New Zealand election day, and it really does sort of speak to, Australia's asymmetric relationship with New Zealand, as they put it.
Sure. Can we just call it Super Saturday or something like that, and pretend that it was by design? Yep. Let's go for it.
Okay. We can workshop a name. So yes, the voice. I mean, where do you start? The voice is a referendum to amend. Let's start with what it actually is. It's a referendum that asks Australians to recognise Indigenous Australians in the Constitution, and at the same time it sets up a formal advisory body to Parliament, representatives of Indigenous people that can have their say, that can offer opinion on matters that affect Indigenous people. At the very so that's the framework. Now, we've had lots of different advisory structures in the past that have gone by the wayside for different reasons. They haven't been formally enshrined in the Constitution. I mean, I think there's a general acceptance across the board that it is an oversight that Indigenous people, inhabited the lands of Australia for 60,000 years before Europeans arrived that are not in the Constitution. And indeed, the leading proponent of the No campaign, Opposition Leader Peter Dutton, has promised a second referendum should this referendum fail, as it's likely to do, on just that constitutional recognition, because they don't like the voice referendum. As
you just stuck in there, as it's likely to do, the polls at this point are pointing towards the question not prevailing, the being voted down.
Yes, it's an incredible flame out. I mean, when people first started polling on this last year, it was as high as 70-80% support. And I think that is because, the spotlight hadn't come onto it. It was really wrapped up in Albanese as well, whose star was really ascendant. Yeah. He sort of floated back to the middle ground now after a year in office. You just pick up issues along the way, and it's really tied to him. And there's been a number of attacks, or the No campaign has been really quite energetic from different perspectives and has picked up steam.
I'm Toby Manhire, and this is Juggernaut, the story of the fourth Labour government, a podcast in 6 parts.
Doesn't give my opponents much time to run up to an election, does it?
This nation is at risk.
What do you think you're up to now, you perverted little liar?
I could smell the uranium on it as you lean towards it.
There's a radical overhaul in the history of New Zealand's administration.
Juggernaut, the story of the fourth Labour government, made with the support of New Zealand On Air. Listen now on The Spin-Off or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you find it hard staying optimistic with all the financial news in the media? I'm Bernard Hickey, and on my podcast, When the Facts Change, I'm here to help you navigate the ever-changing landscape of economics in Aotearoa. So join the conversation every Friday on When the Facts Change, brought to you by the Spin-Off Podcast Network in partnership with KiwiBit.
they're running that no campaign like a defence lawyer who is, saying a whole bunch of things that are internally contradictory, but each one knocks back the yes, right? Like, here are the different arguments that it can. Like, do I have this right? And forgive me if I've got it wrong. There's sort of been a campaign set up by the no, some of them saying it doesn't go far enough.
Well, I mean, one of the reasons it's failing is because the Yes campaign, I mean, the Labor government is the leading proponent of it. Yeah. Labor has been outflanked from the left and the right. There's a Conservative No campaign, which is the dominant campaign. The catchphrase is, if you don't know, vote no. They argue that it's racially divisive, that it gives special privileges to Indigenous people, the one person, one vote stuff. But there's also a Black Sovereign No campaign from the left, which is headed by former Greens, now Independent Senator Lydia Thorpe. And she says the Voice is just a powerless advisory body that won't make change. So there's, vote no, it won't make any change, and there's vote no, it'll make too much change. So it coalesces, and it's all very mucky as well. I mean, it's one thing to have these strategies, but the actual tactics and day-to-day reporting is so focused on individuals and what they might have said controversially in the past, and it sort of all gets down in the muck. And I think people are seeing it as a bit of a wash. And it also, apart from the compulsory voting thing, there is you have to get, do I have this right, a majority of states for it to be approved? That's right. So 6 states, and you've got to get 4 of them. You've got to win 4 of them. Uh-huh. So in reality, that means you can target a campaign, a no campaign on any referendum, to just getting up in 3 states. And if you picked West Australian, South Australia and Tasmania, that's probably only a third of Australia. So you can really narrowcast your arguments. Now, as I understand it, Victoria is the most progressive and is still either just in the positive territory or just ticked below into negative territory. West Australia and Queensland seem like lost causes. They've had some issues that sort of bled into the referendum. And the 3 where it's sort of live contest is South Australia, Tasmania and New South Wales. And the Yes campaign would have to sweep them all now. So it's an uphill task. And there's been some quite high profile campaigning material ads. You've sent us an example of that. Can you tee us up for the first one on the Yes vote? Okay, so people might think I'm about to tee up the John Farnham You're the Voice ad. It's not going to be that. I'm sorry to disappoint you, because it actually doesn't sound it doesn't have a lot of the campaign in it. It's sort of like just music and whatnot. But it's actually the first time John Farnham's lent his powerful song that I understand Winston Peters also likes here to an advertising campaign. He loves to walk instead. I mean, who doesn't? What a gift from the great man. But this is the original campaign ad. Take it away.
I got a story to tell you. It's a good one. It's about how these people, the first people, got a voice.
60,000 years they've been speaking.
Had 363 languages.
But no voice. No say on matters which affected them. It wasn't right.
So, me and your granddad.
Me and your mum.
The whole nation did something about it. People called their friends and families. People talked about it on the streets. Talked about it at work, on the field. Everybody made a song and dance about it.
Everyone walked side by side.
And that's how we changed this country for the better. How we made history.
Is that story true?
It could be.
Authorised by...
Thanks, Ben. And we've also got one from the No campaign, or is it from the Liberal Party, in fact?
Yeah, it's come out just this week from the Liberal Party with spokeswoman for the No campaign, Senator Price. Why don't we just play that, because it'll be a sharp contrast to the sort of messaging from the last one.
Sam's on the dial. Here it comes.
We all want to help Indigenous Australians in disadvantaged communities, but this voice is not the answer. We don't know how it would work, and once it opens the door to activists, we don't know what comes next. What we do know is, once it's in the Constitution, it risks legal challenges, and it will permanently.
Oh, and there it went. And these, are these ads having an effect? Are they? I guess, are they on the front pages of newspapers? Are they going off on it on Sky News? Is this a kind of foregrounded conversation in Australia at the moment?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's been the number one political discussion in the country for so long, and the ads are now coming thick and fast. What that No ad went on to say was a really grab bag of different complaints. It divides us. It's legally risky. It could open us to challenges. It could be filled by activists.
Right.
And I guess, first of all, I guess the first major point as to why it's sort of failing is it not getting that bipartisan support. I mean, referendums in Australia, as we've discussed, are so hard to pass. You really need both sides of government on board, major sides of politics on board, and they don't have that. And I also think that context is really important. So Labor really, and the progressive movement in Australia, really scarred by the last referendum, which was the 1999 Republic referendum, which went down narrowly despite Australians supporting a referendum because they offered a particular model that Australians didn't like. So what they've done this time around is they've tried to leave it as open as possible. Like we're not prescribing exactly how the voice will look. We'll come up with that later. And it's allowed the No campaign to jump in with all those arguments in that ad. It'll be filled by activists, radicals, and all the rest of it.
That was just an alarm test, if anyone heard that coming through the microphone. It's all going to plan. Ben, last thing I wanted to ask you about, we've got David Seymour who's come into the studio now. He can probably hear you if he puts his headphones on. Ben,
I would actually be really interested in knowing how David sees the voice. I mean, he's fairly busy.
Can you hear that, but, David? David Seymour's in here, not one but two ACT MPs in an hour in the Megapod. Why don't you put the question, Ben?
Well, have you been following? G'day, David. How are you going? Ben McKay here from Island Bay.
Yeah, good on you.
Have you been following the voice referendum at all?
Not really. I mean, I understand what the gist of it is, and that there's a referendum on a constitutional amendment that would create a representative body for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders in the federal parliament. Is that about the size of it?
Yep, absolutely.
That's about where I'm up to.
Sure. I mean, there's, to let you off the hook a little bit, there's a fine tradition of trans-Tasman politicians not diving into live issues on the other side of the Tasman, so I can understand why you wouldn't want to get too involved.
That's right. The Labor Party have got a history of getting into trouble on that front too recently, haven't they?
Yeah, well, our equivalent over there is actually a territory, so we don't have that problem.
Ben, just before we let you go, how is it, as a person writing for Australian media from New Zealand, has there been a noticeable diminution in enthusiasm for material from Australia, from the various different publications and outlets that use your copy after the whole Jacinda thing? I mean, everywhere around the world we all know that there was an interest that lifted. Are people in Australia still interested, or have editors gone, oh, actually, no, we don't, all we need is a nib. We don't need a full piece after all?
Well, I mean, it probably shows that I'm the sole journalist from an Australian outlet working in New Zealand.
Okay, right, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, interest in New Zealand politics has fallen off a cliff since Ardern left. That's not to say there's not interest in New Zealand. It's just in the day-to-day happenings and goings-on. And I don't think Australians have really tuned into the election, partially because October 14 represents the voice referendum in Australia as well.
So you are now the sole conduit to all Australians about New Zealand politics.
That's right.
How do you deal with that responsibility?
It is crushing. It is crushing.
Well, I did wonder, because I looked like something's weighing you down. Now we know.
Oh, that's called having a baby. He's a first-time father.
Oh, congratulations. Yeah, right. Well, that can take it out of you.
Hey, Ben, thank you so much. It's been really terrific having you on a little pod experiment. Wouldn't be the same without you, and we'll catch up soon.
Thanks very much, guys. Good luck in the second half.
Kia ora. Thanks for listening. There's plenty more where this came from on your Gone By Lunchtime feed. Thanks to Jane, Te Aihe and Samuel and the rest of the team at the Spin-Off for making the Megapod happen.
This is Climate Adaptation.
We are the Pōtiki of the Taiao.
And the words of those keeping the home fires burning.
It's more than just going along and planting some trees. You got to be able to defend that place to the end of your life.
We have the solutions. We just need to come back to the belief in ourselves as rangatira.
Join me, Nadine Hura, and Ruia Āpirehama for Ko Papa Ko Rangi Series 2, Ahi Ka. Brought to you by Te Komato Te Tonga, the Deep South Challenge, out now on the Spin-Off Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts.
Are you curious about how business can be better? I'm Simon Pound, and I host Business is Boring, a podcast where I kōrero with some of the most interesting people in entrepreneurship, commerce, and making things happen. Tune in to Business is Boring every Tuesday, brought to you by the Spin-Off Podcast Network in partnership with Spark Business Lab.
The Spin-Off Podcast Network.